Hey everyone, it's Karen and welcome to the wrap up for my first week of the year of reading one's own. I'm hoping these videos will keep me on track and keep me motivated, and as I share about how this week went, you'll realize that to start a new plan like this definitely motivated me to read so much this week. The other thing that I thought I was going to do is Lukash from A Cruel Reader's Thesis mentioned in one of my videos that he didn't realize that I was a vegetarian. And so one of the things is I am trying to get really close to vegan. And what I think is fun about that is just challenging yourself to that sort of lifestyle. It's fun to try new recipes. And so I think that in addition to sharing what books I read for the week, I might also share a recipe or anything else that I've enjoyed over the course of the week. To start with that, I made some vegan dinner rolls because basically I have been having a lot of soup now that the weather is getting cooler and it's just like so warm and comforting, and I always want something else to nibble on, whether that's crackers or like a bread. Like I just need carbs. Listen, that's for real. So I made homemade rolls, and like I'm never gonna buy them in the store again. It was so easy and they were so much better than store-bought, and so I will link the recipe below. But as far as books, I read 9 books. 7 of them were from my shelves. So let's get into it. The first book was so good that I have notes on my iPad, but it was What We Talk About When We Talk About Books by Leah. This book is about books, which is what makes it so good. I read a lot of books about books this week, but anyway, basically the author is saying that we really need to connect with books, and that everyone, like on BookTube here, we are so interested and invested and passionate about books that we want everyone to reconnect with books, and we just want to like promote this idea of reading so much. And I know for myself as a reader, I have definitely noticed that my attention span has drastically decreased, like with me wanting to check my phone or whatever. Like if I have my phone near me, I know it's there, and I will stop more often to Google something from my book or just to quick check something. And so while many people will think that like the invention of the smartphone is what really declined reading rates, it actually was the invention of the TV. So once TVs became more popular in homes, people stopped reading as much. She also totally bashes Bookstagram in this book. She basically talks about how the less we read texts, the more we look at books. And so she is basically saying that all these people are just looking at books, and that books as an object are like this really cozy thing. It makes you comforted, it makes you look intellectual, that there's something appealing about the aesthetic of books rather than actually digging into the text. I don't think that's true with the people on BookTube, but she went off on that. And the other thing that I thought was really cool, she's a book historian actually, which I should have said earlier, but she was talking about the development of bookstores, and they were the first stores that allowed people to browse, because before that you would like have to go in and say like what you wanted, but you couldn't like look through the products that were in a store. Okay, so she was talking about linking reading books and having that being correlated to a higher life expectancy, which I would love to think that there's some causation there. However, in another quote in a different chapter, she said literature reading is highest in those too young or too old to work. So to me, it seems like an issue of privilege, and that those that have enough privilege to be able to work a job where they have downtime, or are privileged enough to not be able to work at all, they are the ones who are reading the most, and thus they are probably the ones that are going to live the longest, because they have access to healthcare and they have access to all the sort of things that would encourage you to live longer. So I just don't see at all. And she never said there was a causation. She always said correlation, but I just think that she took that a little too far. I also didn't realize that the idea of a bedtime story was created by publishers in the 19th century, so that was super interesting. And she mentioned that reading is 68% better at reducing stress levels than listening to music. And I heard somewhere else that the number one thing that you can do to reduce stress is reading, followed by listening to music, followed by going for a walk outside. I don't remember. But yeah, it's like the number one thing you can do to reduce stress. So that is super good. Yeah, I definitely give this 5 stars. So good. I promise none of my other reviews will be this long. Oh my gosh, it was so good. Okay, Peppermints in the Parlor is what I read next. This is my favorite book from my childhood. My 4th grade teacher, who passed away unfortunately very young due to cancer, read this book to us, and so it just has a very special memory. Obviously, it's called Peppermints in the Parlor, so he would give us peppermints to suck on while he was reading to us. And tea is also in this book, and so he would also give us tea. I think just once he did that, and it was the first time for many of us that we have ever had tea. So it was just like such a cozy experience, and how he brought this book to life was amazing. I actually posted it on Facebook that I was rereading it, and I had all these comments of people who went to school with me, like on how much they still remember this book and how much it meant to them. So Peppermints in the Parlor is the story of Emily. Both her parents die. She doesn't really seem too upset about it, so you know, that's kind of weird, but that's me as an adult being a little critical, I guess. Her parents die, so she goes to live with her aunt and uncle. Now Emily's family is pretty well off. They are very wealthy. She has 2 trunks coming with clothing because she took the train to get to her aunt and uncle's in San Francisco, and she has jewels inside the trunk, so you know that they're doing okay. She has a lot of really pretty clothes and fancy things. And but what she says is that her aunt and uncle, she has remembered visiting them, and their house is like 4 times larger than hers, and they have a ballroom, and they have all this amazing stuff in their house. And her aunt would go on like trips for her new like spring wardrobe or whatever. So very, very fancy. But very warm, loving family. And when she takes the train to go to her aunt and uncle's to live with them, things are not quite what she remembers. The house is not warm and welcoming anymore at all. Her aunt is very timid, and there are these 2 other women in there. Miss Plum, I'm forgetting their names. Mrs. Meaching is very, of course, tall and very thin. And then Miss Plum, I think is her name. And she's, of course, very, like, short and fluffy. And she seems warm and lovely. And the other one seems super horrible. But anyway, things are not good for Emily in this house. Basically, yeah. Anyway, I don't know how much to share and how much to just leave out. But things are not what she expected at all. She's treated horribly. It reminds me a lot of The Little Princess. And basically, she needs to figure out what the heck has happened in this house that she used to love, and how can she fix it. The next book was Breaking Bread with the Dead. Not a fan of this one. I'm going to get out my notes so I can at least say something about it. But basically, the author just kept repeating himself over and over and over for the entire book, and I was like, okay, I get the point. And I actually started taking notes on it, and then I stopped because I was like, oh my gosh. But basically, he was talking about texts from the past. Okay, first of all, let's rewind. This is called Breaking Bread with the Dead, A Reader's Guide to a More Tranquil Mind. So I thought it would be more like bibliotherapy or the benefits of reading or whatever. I didn't like open it up to read more about it, so perhaps I should have. Although honestly, even reading the inside flap right now, it doesn't really seem to be what I thought it was going to be about. And it was actually more about this idea of reading books from the past. Do we judge people for what they wrote a long, long time ago when they lived in a completely different society with different standards and things like that than we do now? Or do we judge the books like based on our current like status and our current views, and this kind of like balance between accepting, really it's about accepting the book with its historical background and what you know about it, and like being upset with the stuff that could be racist or misogynist or whatever, while also enjoying the book for what it is and for the good things it does have to offer. And I thought that was a really good discussion. I feel like we've talked about that on BookTube before, but he just kept going and going and going and going, and he didn't really... Okay, and then I read The Library Book by Susan Orlean, and this book was lovely. I think I gave it like 4 stars. It was nice, but it wasn't like amazing or life-changing. Basically, this is about the library in Los Angeles and the huge fire it had back in the day. But while she is telling the story of this fire, she dives deeper into the story of libraries and all these cool facts and stuff about libraries that was basically making me want to like text our library director and ask him questions about things. And I found this quote really cool. "The library is a gathering pool of narratives and of the people who come to find them. It is the place where we can glimpse immortality. In the library, we can live forever." I read The Switch by, it's coming up, so I don't remember who it's by, but Beth O'Leary. Basically, it was about this grandma whose life was a hot mess and her granddaughter whose life was a hot mess. And one lives kind of in like this more country, like village sort of feel, a small town, and the granddaughter lives in London, and so they decide to switch lives, and the grandma is gonna go to London trying to find like a man and have some fun, and the daughter is going to chill out. And so I enjoyed it. It was a good like palate cleanser sort of thing, but I wouldn't buy it. It's nothing that I would like read again. It was good. Then Allie and I were reading Me and White Supremacy. We started in October and I like completely forgot about it for like 2 months. But this book was really good because I feel like that so many nice white people think that they're not racist, and a book like this would show them some of the parts of us that are still racist, like we're bathed in this bath of racism that we just can't escape, and we have to do what we can, but we have to be able to see racism. And this really shows you some aspects of yourself that may be racist that you might not be aware of. Some of the things that really stuck out to me were like tone policing. I had never heard of that before, about how when you like police someone's tone, you are totally like just not respecting them at all. And there's just a whole bunch of other things in here. Another thing that is really hard for me is this idea of white silence, which I also hadn't heard of before. And it's basically like when someone sees something racist, they just kind of sit quietly, and they might not like it, but they don't call it out or say anything about it. And this one is hard for me because when I do call out racism, I typically get scolded by other white people in the room, and I get told that I need to focus on solutions, or I get told that this person is just old and they don't understand and you're just picking a fight with them. So yeah, there was a lot in here that really made me think, and this is divided into, I believe, 28 days, and it kind of encourages you to journal along the way. So that was super helpful, not to just read it, but to really dig in and contemplate it on your own. Then I read The Novel Cure by Ella Berthoud and Susan Elderkin. And I believe they actually have a storefront for bibliotherapy where they actually like help people find books that will help them with whatever their current situation is. But this book was equal parts serious and just hilarious. It is kind of mostly an A to Z sort of thing. So there's all sorts of topics in here. Like you could find books that would help if you were melancholy or with insomnia, or being a genius. I mean, there's just all sorts of things in here. Obesity, depression, all sorts of things. Diarrhea is apparently in here. Oh my gosh. And so it would explain like what you should read, but it was just done in a really nice way. And then in addition, there's all these lists in here, like the 10 best books to read on a train, or this page is the 10 best novels to read in the bathroom. There are also like a list for each decade of your life. So books that you should read in your 30s, stuff like that. I obviously did not read the whole thing like cover to cover, but I definitely looked at different things that I think I need help with in my life, and I did get one of the titles from the library, so we'll see if it's helpful. And then I read Admissions by Henry Marsh. I was not so much a fan, not because of what he talked about, but just his attitude. He was just such an ass and I did not love him. But this is about his life as a brain surgeon. He is retiring and he's just kind of like contemplating on his career and different things that have happened to him. He also travels to Nepal and does some things there, working with people in need of surgery and other sorts of doctor sort of things. But yeah, he's just a jerk. There was like one time he disagreed with somebody. It was one of the nurses. They did something that he was not a fan of, and he asked them to remove a tube from this person, and they said no because they disagreed and thought that it needed to be in. And while I can definitely see how frustrating and how like, oh, if you're so passionate about your job, to have someone do something that is not in the best interest of patients, in your opinion, or that they won't like undo when you tell them to, would be extremely frustrating. But he like grabs their nose and like yells at them. Who does that? He's such a jerk. But this did also really talk about differences between the UK, medicine in the UK and in America. And I don't know if it's true or not because I'm just reading these books and talking to people. That doesn't mean that I know everything about anything, especially since I'm not a doctor. But it keeps coming up over and over and over again that in the UK, they have these like massive rooms that are just filled with like patient. And there's like a nurse on the end of like this row of patients, and they take care of all those in the row or whatever. And in America, you have your own room, or at least in the hospitals by my house, you have a private room. And not only is it a private room, but there's so much space. So you could have like so many people in there just hanging out with you, keeping you company, whatever. So I'm not sure if that's always true, but I would give up a private room if it meant that everybody who needed help could get it. And I don't know if the difference between a private room and like a ward is because of the cost or what. I'm not sure, but I would give that up if everyone would get medical attention. The other thing that was really interesting is he was talking about how, I can't remember his exact wording, but basically how Americans like overdo everything. Like they not really over medicate, but like over treat. Maybe they treat above and beyond and unnecessarily. And I would just really like to see like a situation in the United States and then how the same thing would be handled in the UK. Because for me, what is done in America is normal and typical, and I'm just curious, like what would that look like in the UK? Like for example, I'm at a very high risk for breast cancer, so every 6 months I either get a breast MRI or I get a 3D mammogram, and then I also get 2 like clinical breast exams a year too. And I'm just curious, like with that example, like how would things be in the UK? Is that considered like over treating, or I don't know. I'm just really curious about that. And then the last book I read was so good. Oh my gosh. It is called How to Make Disease Disappear by Rangan, I don't know how to say his last name, Chatterjee. I'm gonna have to listen to a video where he says his name. But basically he designed this 4-pillar plan, and it's really to make health and wellness less complicated, more common sense, and just for people to think about how to take care of themselves as opposed to like doing everything perfectly, I guess. And so the 4 pillars are relaxing, eating, moving, and sleeping. And in this book, he talks about different choices that you can make in each of those pillars and how it can really contribute to a better life, and can cure all sorts of health conditions that you don't even think are related to, for example, relaxing. I actually might make a separate video on this book and some of the things I'm doing, because right now I'm doing a combination of the 12-week year and his 4-pillar plan. But this video is long enough, so I think I'll save that for another time. I hope my next week is as epic as this one was. Thank you guys for watching. I really think these videos will keep me on track with my year of reading one's own. So far, 7 books have been read that were on my shelves and are now included in my read bookshelf. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you later. Bye.